Lovely. And I can see Irene.
This meeting is being recorded.
I can see the lovely Irene Hockin is on here.
She
Lovely,
is.
lovely to see you. Thank you so much for all the brilliant work you do to help us on our mission to stamp out spiking. So, okay, let me share my screen. Okay, can everybody see my slides okay?
I've got started sharing screen, but there we go. Yes, got you.
Lovely. Okay, so good evening, ladies. Thank you ever so much for inviting me on today. I would just like to explain a little bit about who I am and what I've done. So for the past nearly 2 decades now, I've been campaigning on drink spiking and other spiking related crimes. It's something that's very close to my heart. Somebody tried to spike my drink back in 1989 when I was on the world trip. This was in Australia. And do you know what? The guy, he was trying to get me to go out for a meal with him. And he kept coming by where I was working in Surfers Paradise and saying, do you want to go out for a meal? And I had a boyfriend back in England and I was like, no, you know, I've got a boyfriend. And he used to keep coming round. And then he said to me, look, you know, no funny business, just come out and have a meal with me. And I was like, okay. So I met him this evening. We went into a restaurant and do you know what? As soon as we got into the restaurant, I went to use the bathroom and I forgot my bag. So I came back to the table and his hand was like hovering like near my drink and he pulled it back really quick. And all the hairs on the back of my neck went up and I thought, he's done something to my drink. And so I went into the toilet and I thought, right, when you go back to the table, do something a bit James Bond style and switch the drinks and but I didn't. I climbed out this little window and ran for my life. I was like, oh my God. And so I was off. I just thought this, you know, and do you know what? That man used to come by and, you know, I was like working in sales and we were stood out in these little booths in the street and I used to see him all the time and I never saw him again. And from somebody who was, you know, really trying to get me out. And you imagine if he had drugged me, what he could have done, because these date rape drugs, they leave you with no memory whatsoever. You become totally compliant. You can't put up a fight. And the most scary thing about it for me is that you have such a small window to actually get help. So when those drugs take effect, and if anybody here, you know, is going out partying or they've got children, grandchildren, brothers, sisters, then you need to share this vital information. If they go out, you can spike in a non-alcoholic drink and an alcoholic drink. The most common form of spiking is normally extra alcohol, and it's funny enough normally done by somebody who loves you, which is absolutely bizarre. It's like, you know, oh, we're just trying to get the party started, and it's like that person may be on medication, they might have to drive later. So it's, you know, it's such a hugely underreported crime, as we know. But I've gone right off on tangent there. I'm like, sorry, I get so passionate about this. So I go a little bit off tangent. So let me explain who I am. So I'm Dawn Dines, the CEO and founder of Stamp Out Spiking. My history is I used to work for social services as a relief residential social worker. And it was here really in that job, especially in a secure unit that I worked in Exeter, in the Atkinson unit. And like we had some really damaged young people that were locked up in that secure unit. They had some really dreadful things that happened to them, and they were still going into, like, even though it was in a secure unit, they still had schooling. And I just couldn't understand why nobody was giving these young people like tips and tools how to act in, and you know, for all these current social issues that were happening, and nobody was hitting upon them. So that's when I started up SOS Global. So I started that in 2008. So I've been going into schools, youth groups, colleges, universities, and I teach on, I like to say, safe sex, drugs, and rock and roll. What everyone else sweeps under the carpet, we like to dish up on the table. And when you say that in a classroom, all the academics sort of go, ooh, and all the little monkeys that are interested are like, what did she just say? So you get your target audience pretty much straight away, which is fabulous. So after teaching on all of these sort of knife crimes, cyberbullying, drug and alcohol, I've been weaving in about drink spiking into those courses for all of these years. And the feedback that we get from the young people, because I split them up, like representing the family, the friends, the police, we give them clues, we give them evidence. And it's a bit like a game of Cluedo. And the young people love it because they're all trying to suss out, you know, who's responsible. A girl's gone missing. It's all based on a true story. And at the end of it, there is no answer. And they're like, well, miss, what happened? I'm like, we don't know. We're never going to know. Don't let the missing link be you. And they get really hacked off because there is no ending. And, you know, and this, you know, I don't know here. Can I just have a quick hands up? I can't see everybody here, but who has been on a night out and had a few too many and can't remember the end of the night? Could you just put your hands up? Okay. And the only way sometimes that I believe is now, I mean, when I was a youngster growing up, it was all cash. Now it's all card. So people are like, oh yeah, we did have a kebab, because they check on their bank accounts. But we all know that there's that certain time with excess alcohol where you have a bit of a memory loss. And I firmly believe that the perpetrators of this disgusting crime are playing on that scenario that, oh, well, you do forget. So maybe because you forget a little bit, then you can forget a lot. And with these drugs taking effect, that's probably how I should imagine that spiking first originated, to be honest with you, is people playing on that. So back in 2005, I invented stop tops, which are a protective foil which goes over a bottle or a can or a glass, just to stop an opportunist, to be honest with you, from easily being able to slip anything into your drink. And then I've always been campaigning. I've spoke to hundreds and hundreds of men and women who've been affected by this crime. And I cannot tell you how many times I've had people breaking down in nightclub toilets, just breaking their little hearts to me, telling me, reliving the account of what happened to them, and people not believing them. And this is key emergency services. We're talking, you know, that I know people have reported it to the police and they've said, oh, you just had too much to drink. And we believe firmly that this is lack of education, that this education needs to be shared far and wide. So it all culminated in the needle spiking, which really, to be honest with you, when that happened, and then we had the girls' night in. Does anyone here remember about the girls' night in? So that was when women all over the country said, we've had enough. We've had enough of going out, of being touched up, of being abused, basically, and now getting drugged and raped. And it was like, so all the women all across the country, and do you know what? bang. As soon as that happened, all money was lost, and that's what makes the world go round, as we all know. And soon as that money started to disappear, everyone started to listen. So I'd love to thank all of those brave women who stood up and said enough is enough. And you know, I can't thank them enough, because it's helped me so much in my fight to stamp out drink spiking and other spiking related crimes. I was then called as an expert witness at the Home Affairs Committee. So I went to Westminster. That was a bit scary. I got there and I was like in front of all these MPs, and I was like, oh, and then the lady said to me, oh, Dawn, we'd like to bring you in next. And another lady pushed in front of me and said everything that she probably thought I was going to say. And do you know what? That really got my back up. And I was like, right. So I upped my game. I stopped being scared. And I was like, here we go, and gave it full barrel. So that was brilliant. So now we know what was happening in Westminster. They understood how much I'd spoken to so many victims. And I think that really helped, because then people realized that I do have expertise in this field, and I have spoken to so many victims. So now I'm sort of spearheading national campaigns. And today I would love to ask you all if you could follow me on social media, which is, if anybody's on LinkedIn, I'm just under Dawn Dines, on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, we're all at Stamp Out Spiking. And today I've made a really bold statement. I love coming out with bold statements. Last year, I said that I'd made a public awareness video, which I'd love everybody to share, because the more people that understand about the signs and symptoms of this disgusting crime, the better chance we've got of protecting against it. So last year I said I want 1 million people to watch this video, and anyway we're up to 500,000. So that was, yeah, I'm pretty chuffed with that. So today my massive bold statement is that I am going to take the largest and most comprehensive research study on drink spiking and other spiking related crimes ever done in the UK, and probably across the globe. So if anybody here knows of anyone who's been spiked, a loved one or a friend, if anybody's been with someone that has been spiked and they could feed back that information, if you could please share that far and wide, so that we can have more evidence that I can go back to the government. It's called Following the Victim's Journey, because we are letting victims down of this crime every weekend, probably every night, and someone is getting spiked and getting either sexually assaulted, raped, robbed. And you know, when people say to me, oh, they just do it as a prank, who is going to want to render somebody unconscious, make them wet themselves, make them be violently sick all over themselves as a prank? There is no prank about this. That really annoys me when I hear people saying about pranks. But so that leads me on to all the media that we've been going. So we've been on Sky News, we've been on GMTV, BBC, the LBC News, which has been fabulous, because that's given me more of a platform to make more people listen, to realise that the law urgently needs to be updated to show that spiking is a recognised criminal offence in its own right. Just on that side, do I have any questions at all that anybody would like to ask? I don't want to keep babbering on in your ears, because you'll probably be like, oh God, she's droning on about spiking a lot.
Absolutely not, Dawn. We are here to listen to you talk about spiking. So no.
Okay, no problem at all. So, drink spiking, what is it? It's basically adding alcohol or drugs into somebody's drink without their knowledge or permission. This can include putting alcohol, as I've said, that's the most common form of spiking, into a non-alcoholic or an alcoholic drink, adding extra alcohol. It can also be slipping prescription or illegal drugs into an alcoholic or non-alcoholic drink. Now, there are other forms of spiking that have become really quite popular, which is a horrible word to say. We saw a couple of years ago that there was needle spiking, lots of girls and men, I have to say, in clubs. It's also been highlighted to us that cigarettes can be spiked as well. And the vapes, this is such a dangerous thing now for anyone who's got children, teenagers at schools. These vapes are absolutely dreadful because they've all got different flavors. And people say, oh, try this blueberry, try this. And it's just such an easy way for people to become a victim of having a vape spiked. And I'd like to share with you an account of a lady who's a mum of 4. I believe it's 3 or 4 children. She went on a night out. She had her vape with her. She said it went out of her sight for seconds. And then when the guy sort of came back, another thing, you know, try this vape. When she got her vape back, she took a puff on it, and she said that she started to feel really, really odd, really queasy. Her friend, she said, get me out, get me out. Her legs went to jelly. She collapsed. Her friend took her outside the club to try and get some fresh air. And she said that she was slumped down and she was blocking her airways, and she thought she was going to like pass out. And her friend kept lifting her head up, and the bouncer said, oh, look, you know, move on, you've had too much to drink. And she was like, no, 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 there's something, you know, there's something drastically wrong with her. So they phoned an ambulance and she got taken off to the hospital. And all she kept trying to say, she said that she was trying to speak, but no words were coming out of her mouth. It was like she was paralyzed. And she was trying to say to her friend that she thought that maybe the guy had spiked her so they could try and get to her friend's daughter who was still in the nightclub. Anyway, she couldn't speak. The ambulance came. They took her into hospital. She couldn't speak to ring her husband. She couldn't tell anyone where she was. And do you know what? When I interviewed her, she said to me, do you know what, Dawn? If I was actually being raped, if that man had taken me off on my own, she said, I couldn't have even opened my eyes to see who was raping me. Now that absolutely was harrowing, listening to that from her. And, you know, so this is why, obviously, I do what I do. So is spiking a real problem? Well, a couple of years ago, before this became a bit of a media sensation, we'd done our first survey, and we had just under 400 people come back to us saying that over 97% of the victims didn't report getting spiked to the police. Now, when we delved into that, it was like, why didn't you? So they said there was no easy way to report spiking. Some people didn't even realize it when it was an offense, because it's done under other laws, like Offence Against the Persons Act or poisoning with obnoxious substance. This is why we need spiking to be a recognised criminal offence, because then the emergency services will be adequately trained, they'll be resourced as well. So it's vital that really that spiking becomes a recognised criminal offence. And you can see on there that 1 in 10 people have been spiked. 1 in 3 students. That was a study that was done at Cardiff University. So spiking offences recorded by the police result in less than 2% of the time, as the figures show. So we're just not gaining convictions. And again, we firmly believe there's a reason for this. There's people think that there wasn't enough evidence, so what's the point of reporting it? That they didn't know what the process was going to be. They didn't think the police were going to believe them. they didn't realize they were spiked until it was too late, because you've only got a very small window, as I've said, until these date rape drugs take effect. So this is why it's so important to get that law changed. So changing the law, as I've already said, there are already several offences which cover spiking incidents, and the government have said that they haven't found any gap in the law. Now, for me, this is a total and utter cop-out. It's just people saying, oh, that can already be looked at from a different offence. Now, if we look at the 1861 Offence Against the Persons Act, I think just saying 1861 just pretty much shows how much that law needs to be updated. With the way that the world is going now, everything's online, everyone's on mobile phones, everybody, it's a totally different world than what it was all those years ago. So we believe that saying under the Sexual Offences Act, Offence Against the Persons Act, poisoning with obnoxious substance, if there is no specific offence code, we are never going to find out the true extent of this crime. And maybe that's partly why they don't want to do that. I'm not sure. Maybe it's going to be frightening. You know, when we do this, when we get this survey, we'll be able to then feed back to everybody to show you exactly what we found. And that will be so important. We're going to be working with a university on this so that we can disseminate all the information. I've had a criminologist working with me on it and a professor. And also I had some Exeter University students helping with the design of this research study. So it's quite thorough. And we just believe that by changing the law, this will make this offence so much easier to be able to record. We'll be able to get that data. I actually contacted every police force throughout the United Kingdom to request their freedom of information data so I could find out the extent of this crime, and it was virtually impossible, because at the moment it's recorded as if it was, say, Rachel, you and I went out, we both got spiked on a night out, I got sexually assaulted, nothing happened to you, that sexual assault would show, but the spiking wouldn't. So that's why it's virtually impossible to get this data, because there is no specific offence code. Does everyone understand the importance of this with the law?
Yeah, and I think the thing is as well that it becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy, because you don't report it because it has no specific name, it's not a specific thing, and because it's not got a specific thing, it's then not classified as anything, so people don't report it, and you just end up in this vicious cycle, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
And it's almost like it's kind of par for the course if you're on a night out, and you know, it's almost like you run the risk of being spiked because it serves you right for going out. And I think there's a lot of attitude like that amongst bouncers especially. And you know, like if you see the police out on the street and your mate's staggering around with the head slumped, like the police are always like, oh, I've had too much to drink. No one takes it seriously because it's not an offence, and therefore you don't report it because people that have been standing in front of you haven't taken you seriously. So why would you report it?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Hannah. Is there anybody else who'd like to? Can I just go through everybody? So just to get a little bit of feedback from you. Sue, what do you think?
I was surprised when you first asked, have any of you been spiked? And I automatically thought, no, of course I haven't. But going back, I'm 80 now, but going back to the days when I was first married, when I was sort of 20, 21, I can remember going out with my husband and his workmates, wanting just a Diet Coke, because to be honest, I didn't know whether I was pregnant or not, so I didn't want to drink. And they all thought it was hilarious to put vodka in my drink, thinking they put vodka in because I wouldn't taste it. But that was sort of accepted. I know I'm going back a long time, but it was me that was the spoil sport. It wasn't them that was doing anything wrong. And I remember going to the loo and coming back, and where I got a little drop of Coke in the bottom of my Diet Coke in the bottom of my glass. When I came back, my glass was sort of that full. And I did actually say to Stan, somebody put something in my drink, and he says, "Oh, they might have done." I said, "Well, I'm not drinking it." And I was strong-minded enough that I didn't drink it. But I think a lot of young girls would feel pressurized into drinking it, especially when it's so-called friends that are doing it.
Yeah.
And as I say, when you first said, "Have you ever been spiked?" I thought, of course I haven't. But really, listening to what you said, yes, I have.
And do you know what, Sue? When you're just talking, then you just reminded me. My dear little mummy is 82. She'll be 83 this year, and she called it diced. She said, "Dawn, I went to a party and people diced my drinks," and I said, "Mum, I'd never heard of that before." And she said, "Yeah," and the same sort of thing happened to my mum, and they were putting extra alcohol into my mum's drink and dicing her drink. So that is a form of spiking. And like we said, it's normally people who love you. It's bizarre. And
It's crazy.
you know, it is crazy. So who have I got? I can't see everybody's names here. I've got a lady. Let me see if I can scroll down.
If you want me to read names out, Dawn,
Kathy.
let me know. Kathy.
Oh. Hi, Dawn. Thank you so much for coming along this evening. I think it's wonderful what you're doing in raising awareness on spiking. And we've been, our group has been trying to do some program action in this area. And so I think it's wonderful here, bring it to life really. And it's fascinating really, the drugs and the alcohol and the perpetrators of all of these crimes. But I've been tweeting a lot about it. I tweet a lot to Libertas, try and spread the word for you in support of what you're doing.
Thank you.
But one of the things that I was fascinated about was the bus in Plymouth, I believe.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you about the bus, or would you just say a few words about the bus?
Of course. Yeah. But do you know what? I was so chuffed with this bus. So first of all, I'd just like to ask all the ladies here, have you ever played a game called Never Have I Ever?
Yes. Yes, many times.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, it's a drinking game. So when you're out with your friends and you're in the pub and you say, "Never have I ever," and if people have done it, they have to take a sip of their drink. And I promise you now, don't ever play it with your partner because they never bloody forget what you've said. So it always gets you in big trouble, this game. So instead of just being like, "Oh, you know, don't spike a drink, we've tried to do it on we've made lots of different posters, and we've done a theme for every month that says, "Never have I ever stuck a double in my mate's drink and not told them. Don't be a spiker. Never have I ever gone out with a loaded syringe. Never have I ever put THC in a cigarette and not told someone." So it's all different ways that spiking is taking place. So I put them on the buses in Plymouth, and then I met with the lovely CEO or the MD, Richard Stevens, and he very kindly sprayed a whole double-decker bus for me. And you know, this bus is a real talking point across Plymouth. It's amazing. And the conversations that are being had by teenagers with their mums and dads on buses, like, "Oh, I didn't realize that was a form of spiking." Like, I had the biggest smile on my face because that really, I think I've got a picture of the bus in a minute to show you. So, yes, I shall bring that up. Is it Hannah next?
Hello. Yeah, I think I mean I did speak earlier, so I don't want to monopolise the the party. But I didn't realise that, and as a lot of people have said, putting extra booze in is a form of spiking. And I remember going out on a first date with a lad, and I went to a bar, and all my flatmates were there, and they were buying me red wines, and they were putting doubles of vodka in my red wine. And after about 3 red wines, I was absolutely smashed out on a date with this lad who fortunately turned out to be all right. I married him in the end. He's all right, really. But I remember texting Rachel, my sister, saying, I'm absolutely leathered and I don't know why. And I didn't remember getting home. And the next day they were all like, ha, 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 ha. But I was in a really vulnerable position with this, just so happened that he was nice, but he might not have been. But I never realised until you said that. And I'm thinking, you bastards.
But my husband as well is absolutely famous for it. If you ask for a single, he'll buy you a double and not tell you. And he thinks it's a joke. And for a while now, I have been saying to him, like, you haven't got consent off people to do this. Like, we need to have a serious conversation about this. But for years, he just thought he was being funny and bringing the party, and everybody would be really grateful for
generous,
it.
like
Generous,
generous.
Kind.
Doing people a favour, and it's that not understanding. Actually, you are putting somebody in a vulnerable position, or like you say, they might be pregnant.
Yeah, like medication. Yeah, you never know, do you?
No.
No, that's so true. Thank you for sharing that. Is it Bozana? You're on mute.
You're on mute, Bozina.
It's Bozena.
Oh, hello, welcome.
Bozena.
Hi. Yeah, I'm a Soroptimist from Sutton Coldfield. My experience is a bit like Sue's experience. I'm teetotal. I have been for decades. Never liked the taste of alcohol or anything else. And I worked for the health service at the time. I arranged an away day with the senior management team. And we went out, we had dinner, and they knew I was teetotal. So I was drinking, I think it was orange juice and lemonade in those days. And they said to me afterwards, towards the end of the evening, well, that was a waste of time and a waste of money. And I said, what do you want about? And they said, well, when you went out, we put some vodka in your drink to see what reaction there would be. Oh. Well, I don't know if they actually did or whether or not, and there were 2 of them. It was the general manager and one of the other senior managers, both men. And to this day, I don't know whether or not they did it. And I said, well, I couldn't taste any different, and there was no reaction. And again, as Sue says, I wouldn't have thought that was spiking. I mean, thinking about it, I could have actually taken them to the tribunal, but there was no proof. But yes, I mean, I got married young, so I didn't actually go out. Went to clubs with my husband, but didn't tend to go to pubs, and I still don't. And my husband's not a drinker as such, although he does when we go out socially. But so it's not something I've come across, but I am aware, and I have a granddaughter who's 16. Thankfully, she lives in Finland, and the culture situation is different. And I'm not saying that spiking doesn't happen in Finland, but they have much tighter alcohol regulations. It's all government controlled, so you can only buy alcohol from government shops and everything else. But her life is completely different to the life, she's 16, and completely different to the life that she'd have if she lived here. So in a way, I'm grateful she lives over there. But she's also not streetwise.
Yeah.
So, and that does worry me. So yes, As I say, it's not. I've not had anybody that I know of that has been spiked, or that that has gone out and can't remember sort of the evening. And I mean, I've never
lovely.
been in a situation. Yeah, I mean, for me,
Thank you for that.
I have to know what I've done, so that I've never put myself in a situation where I can't remember because of something I've personally done. But yes, it does worry me, because
that's lovely. Thank you ever so much. I'm very aware that I'm going to run out of time, I'm afraid. I just wanted to speak to Irene. Could I just come to you a minute, please?
Yeah, Dawn.
How are you?
I'm fine, dear, thank you. I'm sitting listening intently. I'll just say that I'm from SI Barnstable District in North Devon, and I've worked with Dawn supplying stop tops and spikies to all manner of organisations around us. So we work with the students in Petrock. I work with the police, so the police licensing officer will distribute anti-spiking deterrents for us. And I think that's important. It's fine to raise awareness, but we need to have the deterrents with us as well. We need to get the stop tops and the spikies out there. We need to get them to the right people, and to make youngsters understand that it isn't just the alcohol that can be spiked. In fact, Dawn, you had the story on your last newsletter about a cupcake spiked. So if people are going to spike, they're determined, and they will.
That was my friend's dad, who was 89 years old.
Yeah. Wow. That was at a wedding party, wasn't it? After
a wedding. Yeah. And his daughter-in-law, who was 63, passed out. They thought she was dead. The other sister-in-law was a nurse. She couldn't find a pulse. She just went grey and passed out. And, you know, how disgusting is that? Oh, my God, if someone done that to my dear little daddy, my late dad, I probably wouldn't be sat here now. I'd probably sat at Her Majesty's pleasure somewhere. I honestly, it just frightens the hell out of me, stuff like that. And yeah, Liz, thank you, Irene, for that.
Hello, Dawn. Before you go, I'm Darlene Jameson. I'm calling from Vancouver, and I worked in justice and social services as a probation officer and an analyst for 40 years. But in Canada, apparently we have under the criminal code, you can receive a maximum of 14 years, which I don't think happens very often. But if it would be under assault causing bodily harm by administering a noxious substance.
Yeah. Lovely. Do you know what? We've actually got stop tops in Canada. They are in Quebec at the moment, and I've also got some ambassadors in Canada, and we've also got some ambassadors in America now, because this is a global issue, as we will all know. I'm going up and down my list here. Thank you ever so much for that. Who have I missed out?
Liz.
Liz, yeah.
Liz.
Hiya. Apologies for coming on to this a bit later. I was otherwise engaged in bedtime, so apologies for missing the beginning of your presentation. But what I've heard has been very informative. And like we said about alcohol versus no alcohol, I've personally just not had any alcohol much this year, and I was in a bar a couple of weeks ago. I was away for work, and I ordered the non-alcoholic gin and tonic. Came, and I thought, took a few sips, and I thought, I'm getting very hot here, which is the first sign of me having alcohol.
Yeah.
Questioned it with the bar manager and was told, you've ordered that, it will be that. To which I took a few more sips and thought, nope, this is alcohol in it. And took it till another manager came on shift, because it was shift change. Questioned it, couldn't be more apologetic, changed the drink, said I will pour it personally. And it tasted very different.
Wow. That's a pub doing it. You're talking about hot flushes. I'm having one now, Liz. Bloody hot flushes. 1 minute I'm sat here like with a coat on, and then the next minute I'm naked. I'm like that.
Yeah, you're in
And
good company, Dawn, don't worry.
Yeah,
The joys
Oh.
of being a woman.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Is there anyone else that I've missed?
Laura here. I've had my drinks spiked and not known. I went out. I used to work in a pub, and I went out with some of the people that worked or frequented the pub. There was a big gang of us, and we went to a local town, into drinking in a nightclub. And I hadn't had that much to drink at this point because I was always conscious that I had to get a taxi home, and I was going out, and it would be on my own. And I ended up feeling absolutely out, and I couldn't stand. I kind of nearly passed out in the toilets. And two of them put me in a taxi on my own, and let this taxi driver take me from one town to another. How I got out, fortunately, my parents had just, because I still lived at home at the time, my parents had just come back from somewhere, and my dad noticed me banging against the front door because I couldn't coordinate myself to get the key in the door. And it was like, oh my God, what has happened to her? Because they had to help me to bed because I couldn't even climb the stairs.
That is
But like
terrible.
everybody else said, is it did not, I was more focused on being, and I felt rough for days, but you know, whatever it was, I still don't know what it was. And I look back and I should have reported it, but I don't know who it was. And when I next went to work in the pub, is, you know, there was a lot of smiling and a lot of laughing, but yeah, and it could have been any one of them, and I don't know.
But I think a big problem is it's not just that you don't know, it's that it's really hard to make other people believe you. Like I believe I was spied once, and fortunately one of my very good friends recognized it and took me home and made sure I got home safely. But a lot of other people I was with were just laughing because I'd got really drunk and didn't realize what was going on. So sometimes it's like you don't recognize it, friends and family don't recognize it, bouncers don't recognize it. If they turn up, then paramedics don't recognize it. That's the biggest sort of fear, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do we tackle that holistic approach to it?
But you also don't know whether people have got underlying health conditions that could be risk to life, whether you think it's funny or not.
Yeah.
Is who knows what could happen.
That was my point in the pub recently. I said, what if someone was on medication?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so true. Oh, ladies, it's so lovely to, well, it's not lovely to hear that you've all experienced it. And, you know, that's like the majority of us on here that have all been spiked. And as Sue said earlier, she has been spiked and she didn't even realize it until we started talking today. So I'm going to go on to my next slide. I hope I've included everybody there. I'm sorry if I've missed anybody out. I just want to hit on some really important issues for me. There are drink testing kits that people are testing the drinks with. Now, it absolutely does my head in because they are not fit for purpose. They only test for a certain amount of drugs. Now, there are a multitude of drugs on the market that are being used currently for spiking issues, and we've only got some that test, the testing kits only test for a certain amount of drugs. So this can be putting someone into a real false sense of security. If somebody comes up and they've got a testing strip and they're like, no, there's nothing in that drink, it's only been tested for, say, ketamine or rohypnol, then you could be putting that person into much more danger because they could possibly think that their drink is all right. It will give them a false sense of security. We're not entirely, they're not entirely comprehensive. Many drugs are not tested for. So if you think you have been spiked, then you must keep hold of that drink for evidence. So this is why we feel that for anyone who could try and help us, we've actually in North Devon, we had Prue Maskell, who is a local councillor, and she got some funding together, and we went in and we trained up all of the bar staff in every pub in Braunton, which was amazing. So we went in and, you know, every single bar owner came in. This is where you get the best learning. If you can get the licensing officer, if you can get the bar staff, the taxi drivers, the street pastors, it's their 20-year anniversary on Saturday. What an amazing group of people they are.
Yeah.
They go out on our streets every weekend looking after us. They gave me flip-flops years ago when I broke the heel on my stiletto. And yeah, many years ago when I was prancing around in stilettos, I tell you. And now it's just a pair of Converse or some big DM boots. I've gone off the big high heel shoes, but you know, those amazing people, they're the people that we need to train. This is why we need to raise funds. We need to get that training disseminated. It can be the difference between someone getting home safely and someone getting potentially gang raped, filmed. So it's vitally important. So what can we do? So as Irene kindly said earlier, and funny enough, Irene, I'm meeting tonight. This is why I've got to go off. They're coming to pick me up from the hotel. I'm actually meeting the people who invented spikies tonight. So it's the people that run that company. So we already
I've always got some around, Dawn. I've always got spikies around. Hundreds and hundreds of bags we've dished out so far.
That's
with stop tops, so spikies and stop tops together.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant, because that spikies are brilliant. The only trouble is that sometimes certain bars don't let you keep bottles because of fighting. So that's why we invented a stop top, to be honest with you, because spikies are great, but then if you're in a nightclub, they're like, oh no, you're not allowed to keep that because of fights. So that's what they've got a place, because when you're out at festivals, you are allowed to keep bottles. So that they definitely do have a place in the market. We've also got a nightcap, which is like a scrunchie, which goes around your wrist and you can put over a glass. These are going to stop opportunists, and they're also, with the stop tops, we have a QR code on them. So if anybody ever does get spiked, then you can make sure that they've got all that safety information there to be able to go back to, so they'll know exactly what to do, what to say, how to safeguard their friend or loved one. So stop tops, we think, are, you know, and nightcap and spikies are just one way that we can really help to do this. We're if anybody is interested in becoming an ambassador for stop tops, for Stamp Out Spiking, would be amazing. I've got some links at the end of my presentation with a QR code that you can just pop your phone over, and you know, it would be amazing. The more ambassadors that we have, the more that this will then keep disseminating, and Irene's an ambassador for us already. So as we've said, education is absolutely key. We have 2 training courses. We have a 20-minute online course, which is ideal for the hospitality festivals. If anybody's got any festivals going on in their area, this is where we found out lots of gang rapes have been happening. There's no CCTV. There's recreational drug use going on anyway. Then they could use a different drug and just say that somebody maybe thinks that they were taking cocaine. Instead, they give them ketamine. Then they go in and out of consciousness, and that's when they can be easily raped. And then they'll have no memory of what's happened to them. So they might not even know, which is absolutely dreadful. So our 20-minute online course costs £5, I believe it is. We've tried to make it, we're not here to make loads of money. We're here to be sustainable, to campaign and to raise awareness of this dreadful crime. The other training courses that we have are a 2-hour course, and this is ideal for venue management, licensing officers, key emergency services, and that's the consequences of what spiking can have on a business, what venues can do, immediate calls to action. You get a policy, procedure, risk assessment, and a HR toolkit. That's, I believe it's £120 or £125 per person for this course. It's independently verified, and you get a certificate to show that you're spike aware. If with venues, if you've got pubs or clubs in your area and you believe that young people or middle-aged or older people are getting spiked in those venues, you can go in and say, what are you doing about drink spiking? What are your bar staff trained? And if they say yes, say, where's your certificate? Do you have a certificate to show for this training? And I think that people should be doing this. You should be going into pubs and to nightclubs and saying, has this happened? And if they do, say, well, where's your risk assessment on it, please? What policy and procedures do you have? Because this is what is vitally needed. And, you know, like I've said, it really is the difference between young people. If I've got 2 stepchildren, and you know that they go out partying, I still go out partying. So, you know, and I feel that this is what we should be saying to venues. We should be asking them. This should be what is happening at festivals when licenses are granted. We should be saying to these people, what's happening? You know, what are you doing about spiking? What policies do you have in place? What risk assessments? So, you know, getting this training disseminated across the UK is vital. I've actually received a couple of lots of funding from 2 different police and crime commissioners now. And I'm going to be going in and I'm going to be training trainers so that we can train more people, so that all of this information can then be said to so many more people.
Which, just out of interest, Dawn, I know you're an actor, which police crime commissioners?
It is for Bedfordshire, so that's Festus in Bedfordshire. And
I'll change the question. It's not Lancashire, is it?
I don't believe so.
Right. Well, I'm meeting with the police chief crime commissioner for Lancashire shortly, so I will happily put this to him and ask him to follow this up.
Lovely. What's his name, Rachel?
Andrew Snowden.
Yeah, no, I haven't spoken to Andrew yet. I've spoken to about, do you know what? I had meetings about 3 years ago with about 14 different police and crime commissioners, and they said, and on the 14th, they went, do you know there's an association of police and crime commissioners? You could have done this to all of us.
All in one go.
Oh, bloody hell.
Can just also say, Dawn, that I'm in Merseyside and our police and crime commissioner is a young woman, Emily Spurrell.
Oh,
so
right.
It's worth having a word with her as well. Because
Yes,
obviously
please.
Liverpool's quite a big centre of clubbing.
It really is. And do you know what's happened in Liverpool today? So you've got a bar there called Ugly Coyote, and about, must have been about a month ago, maybe 5-6 weeks ago, a lady caught a man spiking a woman's drink. So they done all the right things. They got the police, they caught him, they found he had loads of different pills on him. Today, I found out he walked out of court with no charge. I am like, what the hell sort of message is that sending? I'm going to be smashing that all over social media. I'm so angry. Do you know what? That barmaid, she put herself not in danger, but she put herself out there. She got hold of the right people. She done all the right things. And now the courts have just let that person walk free.
Well, so, I hate to admit this after your last comment, but I'm a magistrate in Merseyside.
Right.
And I wasn't in court today, so I didn't see this person. I didn't let them go. But the issue is, and that was mentioned a couple of times from other participants, the problem is that you can't convict unless you are absolutely sure that that person is guilty. And
of course.
That's the problem. That's a burden of proof. And it's a very, very high burden of proof.
It is,
so I'm not defending them, but I'm just saying.
No, No, that's
That's
totally
the
fair.
problem.
Coming from a magistrate, it's fantastic because, you know, it's people like you that we need to be talking to. We really do. And I do believe that there was CCTV of him doing it. But
Right.
don't quote me on that. I'm going to be looking into it because
Please do.
yeah, I was.
It's like you know, your quote before, Dawn, the statistic that was on the last slide, I think, you know, it's all very well saying, you know, to keep your last drink or whatever. It might not have been in that drink. It might not have been in a drink at all. You know, there are so many different ways. So how do you know, you might keep your last drink and actually it was two things earlier.
It could be, Rachel, but normally these date rape drugs take effect pretty quick.
Right.
And to be honest with you, on a percentage, the drink spiking is probably 95% of all cases of spiking incidents. Right. So it is the majority. So with
I would also just say, as somebody, when you lose all coordination, the last thing you can do is keep hold of your drink. You're trying to keep yourself upright. As somebody who has bounced off the walls because of this, you know, I get your point, but it was like.
Well, this is why we need to educate our staff.
That's why it's so hard to collect that evidence, isn't it? That's
why
but Dawn, is it not true? I mean, down here in North Devon, the Devon and Cornwall Constabulary, they can take urine samples on the spot.
Yes.
Right? If the report comes in, they can take a urine sample there and then test it.
Right.
Yeah, they can. And taking a urine sample is the best way of doing it. And to go back to you, Laura, talking about you couldn't, you know, coordinate and stuff like that. This is why we feel it's essential that bar staff, the SIA, all the security staff, they should all be trained on this so that they have that information. Because like you say, Laura, if you've been spiked and you've got these drugs in your system, you can't do anything. You don't know what the hell's happening. But
it's to the point I came across as basically, to, like Hannah says, absolutely paralytically drunk. And I know that I hadn't drunk enough to be like that. And so therefore they just assumed that, oh, she's drunk, get her out, you know, let her go home and sleep it off. And it's not the situation.
No, it's really not. So we've got the Never Have I Ever posters, which we can disseminate. We've got a public awareness video, which we can put people's at the end of it, we can put anybody's logo and signpost people to any, like if it was up in Liverpool, if it was in, was it Lincoln, Rachel? Oh, Lancaster. Lancashire, sorry. So if the Lancashire Police and Crime Commissioner thought, yeah, we want that public awareness video, we could signpost, we can put all the local agencies that are there. So if anybody has been affected by this crime, they know exactly where to go and what to do. This is a step-by-step guide, and it's got lots of victims' testimonials on it. So how can you help us at Stamp Out Spiking? So first of all, thank you all so much for having me on today and giving me the platform to share my mission. By you allowing me to do this, this information is now going to cascade through more people, through your loved ones, through your families, through your friends. And for me, the best form of advertising is always word of mouth. So thank you all very much for that. If you're interested in becoming an ambassador, you can put your telephones over that QR code, and that will take you straight to the ambassador's page. And if you wouldn't mind, please leaving me a bit of feedback on the form about what you thought of my presentation today. I could go on and talk for another hour to you all, I really could. But yes, I have to go out and meet this man from Spikey's to see what he's going to offer. I've got to say that I've been given donations from every stop top that is sold. A donation goes back to Stamp Out Spiking, because my legacy when I'm no longer here is I want to embed this into universities. I want to train freshers. I want to keep that continuity going of the training so that we're not going to have these issues that young people coming up, breaking their little hearts to me in nightclub toilets after being gang raped when they first move away from home. They're in a university town. They go out for their freshers, should be the best nights of their lives. And they end up getting gang raped by someone. It's just absolutely disgusting. And it needs to change. So if there's any way that you can please share my my link, which will be on, it's all on social media at the moment, and that will be to do the survey. So if anybody's been spiked, but all of you ladies that have been spiked through alcohol, please fill it in for us, because it's not just about drugs, this is about alcohol as well. So Sue, I don't know, you might be one of the older ladies that comes in that being spiked at 80. Oh no, sorry, my mum will be filling it in. And do you know what? It was actually my dad's friends that were spiking or dicing with my mum's drinks. So you know that was supposed to be, again, people who love you. So is there? I've got 10 minutes to go until I've got to be out the door. So is there any questions? We've got a few minutes for any questions, please, ladies.
I will see if there are any questions in a minute. So I'll put your hand up if you do have a question. But I just wanted to sort of briefly, very quickly tell you, Dawn, what our program action has been. So I don't know if you're familiar with Soroptimist terms, but program action is what we call any kind of campaigning that we do, basically. And one of the things that we wanted to do as SI Libertas was tackle spiking, because most of us, or several of us at least, had either had a personal experience or knew somebody that had an experience. And so we wanted spiking to be one of our things, but one of the things we wanted to do was change that narrative. And very often the emphasis is put on the victim to keep themselves safe or to collect the evidence or whatever. And we wanted to change that. So what we've been doing is working with a local college, the PSHE college students, and we asked them to put together some presentation work to how would they educate each other against spiking, so to try and prevent people spiking in the first place, because quite often what we were finding was teenagers were just seeing it as a laugh. It was just something funny. They weren't necessarily even doing it with the intention of raping anybody or putting anyone in harm's way. It was just a laugh. Let's just put something in or give someone an extra shot or see what's funny. So what the kids did was come up with these presentations, social media posts, posters, all sorts of things that looked at victim impact statements and looked at punishments, and from a peer-to-peer point of view said, actually, it's not just a bit of fun. You are making somebody vulnerable, or you're making somebody ill, or, even worse. And that was really interesting. So, and that what we've done with that is put together a little education pack that we want to then, we've rolled it out to some of the PSHE classes. But what we really want to do is put together a booklet that we would give to college and university students in Freshers Week. So it's really interesting that you said that at the end. That ties in really nicely with what we're trying to do. So I know there's not a lot of time tonight, but I'd really like us to stay in touch in future and see if we can work with you further on doing that, and how can we together maybe roll out some more of that stuff and give it to those students in that Freshers Week.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it would be great if we could get some stop tops out to them. At the end of the day, I understand where you're coming from about the victims, but we do also, which is something that everybody says to me, it's victim blaming. It's not victim blaming. We've all got responsibility for our own personal safety too. And I think with what's going on at the moment, protection is key and education is vital.
I would definitely like us to look at how do we distribute stop tops and the spikies and stuff. So I'm certainly going to find out more about becoming an ambassador and doing what Irene's been doing, because I think we are very dotted around the UK as an e-club, so we could between us cover quite a wide area. So I'd definitely be interested in us distributing.
That would be amazing, because I'm going all over the country and I can't split myself in 100 bits. To have ambassadors all over the country, and for us to look at putting in, then to buy in bulk I can buy cheaper, which would be even better. And the other thing is I'd really like to work with the street pastors as well. We're working with quite a few now. They give out stop tops every weekend, and that's the sort of thing that we want to be doing, so that that message is being shared, and also that key information about safety. But is there any other questions? I'm really sorry, that's what gone on a little bit there.
Anybody else got any questions, comments, anything?
That was brilliant, Dawn. Thank you. I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was horrifying, but it was really.
Oh, thank you. I'm really glad you all found it informative, and thanks ever so much for having me on. And you know, let's do another catch up next time you have a meeting, and then we can see what we can do in the future. So, you know, I can just come on for 10-15 minutes or something. You could all feed back to me, would be brilliant. If you need any further information to give over to any of your police, I know a couple of you are meeting with police and crime commissioners, then you can tell them that we're working with Sussex, with Katie Vaughan, we're working with Festus in Bedfordshire, we're working with Alison Hernandez in Devon and Cornwall. So, you know, it will be great to get I think the police and crime commissioner, one of them bought like 250,000 stop tops. Wow. And they put their own safe message on there, and they put them everywhere. So when you go out for a drink in Brighton now, it's just the done thing. And, you know, and all the kids, the feedback, they're like, oh, I feel so much safer. And, oh, I didn't have to down my drink at the bar like I normally have to, because they're scared of carrying a drink around. So it's just a nicer way of going out. And it also stops flies getting in your gin and tonic.
Yes, multiple benefits.
Yeah, it stops you spilling at a festival, which is major. The amount of JD and Cokes I've dropped at festivals, like, oh, another 10 quid. So, but the best one ever, which I'm going to leave you ladies with, is I went to my mum's and she had one on the cat food to stop it smelling in the fridge.
Well, you don't want that cat to be spiked. So there we go.
I definitely don't, ladies. So I'm going to be with you in 2 minutes. I'm just finishing on my Zoom.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Dawn. Thank you very, very much. We will most definitely keep in touch. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything you can do, ladies, to help us to like raise awareness, raise funds, so that we can safeguard as much as we possibly can. And also, if you can sign any petitions that I have, would be gratefully received.
Yeah, we will, absolutely. We'll share all the links and everything on our socials as well. So yeah, much appreciated.
Lovely.
That's good. Thank you. Enjoy your
meeting. Bye. Bye, ladies. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for letting me join you, ladies.
Very welcome, Irene. Thank you for coming. Lovely to see you.
And you, dear.
Yeah, and thank you to everybody else who's come as a visitor. I really appreciate that. As I said, we have recorded this session, so I will put it on our YouTube channel, and I'll share the link for anybody that wants to catch up. But yeah, really appreciate it, and lovely to see some of you again.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Have a lovely evening. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.